It is absolutely my pleasure. I'm Bev Scott, and the founder and CEO of AYA, and it's my pleasure to follow up from what was a unbelievable presentation with the International Transportation Learning Center, the Transportation Workforce Center, and Amalgamated Transportation Union, our largest public transportation union in North America. And they gave the what I call kind of the first portion of the career awareness, which was to give you a sense of the what is officially covered under transportation, and then very quickly honing in on an area that is really a primary for us, which is public transportation, because that is the area of transportation which I am proud to claim, but it is the area of transportation that honestly touches most people's and most people in most communities. And so they did that portion. And what we're going to do today is I just want to kind of share like a bigger perspective, okay, a broader perspective, if you will, a bigger lens in terms of infrastructure, transportation, sustainable mobility, clean energy. I mean, it's all this different stuff that you hear about, okay, or you're a part of. And I just want to kind of help try to pull some of that together and tell you a little bit about why you're even in this program and what this program is all about. Okay. So we're really about, and it says it right there, you can read. It's motivating, but it's motivating youth. Okay. And youth for us are minors and young adults. Okay. And I can tell you there's no official definition of what is a youth because we look for it. Okay. But generally speaking, and this is even internationally, generally speaking, this group will go anywhere from cradle up until in some countries it's actually thought to be as actually talk about as being up to 30 years old, but for the most part most stop at 25. And in the United States that is literally the one that is, once again, it's not a standard, but that's when people talk about youth, that they're the minors 18 and under, and then young adults, and that's the way we do the terminology, are 18 to 25 years old. Okay. And we want you to come back on that for a minute, Z, I, but it's infrastructure leaders, okay? And I'm going to talk about this world of infrastructure, skilled workforce, our innovators, and our entrepreneurs. And so I want to just kind of sit on that for a minute because so many times we think of things and we think of them as jobs, but these are careers and they're career opportunities, and careers are many facets, and you don't have to just stay in one place. And we're going to be talking about that a little bit more. But we want you to be leaders. We want to respect and uplift the fact the skilled workforce. Okay. Everybody is a professional who does their job and they do it well. Okay. Innovators, the ones who are going to be thinking about and planning those future, and then entrepreneurs. And there is a business element of this, okay? And that jobs are wonderful, but you can also think in terms of being a business owner, and really being able to be even more about this whole notion of generational wealth creation. Okay. And all of that comes down to, we do not really talk that much about infrastructure, but for us, it comes down to being community builders. That's when you take this work up, that's what you get to do, is to be blessed to wind up being in the business of community building. Okay. Now, we say that because why? Because infrastructure, okay, is the backbone of our daily lives. Okay. These infrastructure decisions, most of them have many of them, generational impacts. And I always tell people infrastructure is going to be playing in your neighborhood, your community, your society, whether or not you are engaged in it or not. Okay. And so think about that. And many of the decisions whether it's a bridge or a structure, most of these structures that we talk about across the infrastructure sectors, and we're going to show you what they are in a minute. These are generational. You're not going to just go take a bridge and knock it down. Okay, you know what I'm saying? So the placement of these, the decisions around it, what kind of we're sturdy. Okay, and so it is with no tongue in cheek that being really clear about be engaged in this work, whether you do it as a job or just in your citizen as being a citizen, is that we want you to understand that these infrastructure sectors are important and that you want to invest in them, but you want to invest and you also want to be a part of the decision making because just because we make an investment in infrastructure doesn't mean it has to be a good one. It's who the people that making the decisions and are involved that help to make that happen. They are also sectors that, for the most part, have a really an underrepresentation of people of color and women, and that's documented. We make no numbers up over here. And but they're also such this major opportunity to be able to be about the business of community building. They are tremendous careers and business development. And you can and that you can make a difference. You can make a difference. Okay. And we're in our program, we very much focus on youth voice, okay, and that your learned and lived experience, the learned and lived experience of a fifth grader, okay, who is the one that's walking the street, walking down the sidewalk, whether it has lights or not, whether or not they can readily and easily utilize public transportation, whether there's this is all lived and learned experience. So yes, it's good what you get in the textbook, and we want you to get that stuff out of the textbook, okay? But we are also respectful of the fact that your lived and learned experience, okay, is also extremely important and should be valued, okay? And so the point of it is that young people really you have your perspectives, and this really the future that we're developing together, okay, is the future that you will be the one to be running, okay. So that's the proselytizing on that. Keep on going, okay. Now when you talk about, now I was a woman of almost 60 years old. It's another reason why I always, when people ask me the question, they say, well, you're a career awareness program. You mean that you're not the one that teaches people how to turn the wrench or hit the button on write the code or whatever? I said, no, we're not that one. Okay, now what we do choose, that we try to make sure we do, is make sure that we connect and have as a part of our program the folks who are really great in that. I said, well, we're really about career awareness. And one of the reasons we're about career awareness, I always laugh and say, I said, well, grown people don't even know what all is encompassed by the terminology of infrastructure. And so what would make us think that youth would? And one may argue back and forth whether there should be other areas that are up here, but literally in the United States, and I'm speaking for the United States, there have been for about the last 40 years, okay, a presidential policy directive that actually identified what are the 16 critical infrastructure sectors nationally for the United States. Like I said, one may argue why isn't something else in there or whatever, but these are what they are. And out of those sectors, you'll see transportation is one of them. Amongst these sectors, they have also designated what are considered to be the lifeline sectors. It doesn't mean that the other ones are not important, but that these are really kind of very cross sectoral. Okay, they are, if you don't have them, they really cause major, not only individual impacts, but cascading impacts for communities. And the definition that went into the selection, the thinking that went into the selection of these critical infrastructure sectors, it was really the first President Bush, and it was after 9/11. And so what they really came up with was this whole thing of which functions, activities take place in our country that if they are interrupted, it will have interrupted or destroyed, okay, will have an absolute direct impact on our national security, critical manufacturings, communications, chemical sector, dams, energy, food, and the quality of life for the American people. And so that was the thinking that went into the original identification of the sectors. And it came very much from the notion of a threat vectrix, like somebody's going to come and bomb us. What has wound up happening over this 40-year period of time is that has been expanded to take in the whole concept of sustainability and resilience climatic issues, natural disasters. And so it's not just the old kind of Cold War or, the threat vectors is we're going to get bombed. Okay. And I'm saying it's just looking at it is that look at all of the kinds of different factors that we need to really keep an eye on that in fact can wind up impacting tremendously these sectors. And if these sectors are down, then we got problems. Okay. And so anyway, or impaired. So that's the thinking that went into these sectors. And the lifeline sectors are transportation, therefore, transportation, the energy sector, the communication sector, and the water sector. Those are the four that are of these 16 identified as being the lifeline sectors, and transportation is one of the lifeline. Okay. All right, let's keep going. Okay. So I often say about infrastructure that it's one of those that probably the fact, we were talking about it's generational, is that we're so sturdy. Okay. Is that, infrastructure is all around us. But it's all around us, but oftentimes it's hidden in plain sight. So you walking down the street, it's the light or the lack thereof. Okay. It's a drain. Okay. Do I have drains or do I have gullies? Okay. It's all of, and then definitely when we were in the pandemic, and public health was one of the originally identified sectors. People didn't really normally think of, I don't think public health or financial services is one of the sectors. They wouldn't, you'd almost kind of automatically think of it as being, oh, it's those heavy infrastructure. It's transportation. It's this. Well, there's these other areas too that are also, but one of the things that we, because we don't reflect on it, it just happens. We reflect on it when something doesn't happen the way it's supposed to, which is one of the reasons that you will hear us say that, and I shall never forget this. During the height of the pandemic, I'm very honored to serve on a presidential commission with these 16 sectors. And we were interviewing a gentleman who was in Minnesota. And I asked him the question. He was a public works director, and we were right in, like I said, the pandemic. And I asked him, I said, well, when you go to, we were doing a talent management study in infrastructure sectors. I said, when you go to high schools or you talk to young people, what do you say to interest them in these careers? Okay. And I shall never forget it. It was like that we were all on the phone doing this study listening, and the man came across and he said, well, you know what I say to the people, Dr. Scotty? He said that we are the people who make normal happen, who make normal happen. And when he said it, all these years, I had never heard anyone make that characterization and certain how true it was and how really true it was that we were all getting the wake up call because this happened as we were right in the beginning throes of the pandemic. And I said, is that not the truth? Okay. And so you don't ever have to wonder in these sectors whether or not the work that you do has meaning. Because yes, we are the people who make normal happen. Now, what normal, as I've been challenged by our youth who told me, what kind of normal are we running back to? Are we running back to the normal that is wound up having there be more people of color who have died during this pandemic and more? I'm not saying we're perfect, okay? And what our youth told us back a couple of years ago, and we got it was on our YouTube. They said, look, we challenged the normal. We're not just running back to normal. We want adjust normal, adjust normal. And so if this is anything, it should be a wake-up call. But so, and what we say on this kind of stuff like that is hidden in plain sight. And you start. Yeah, I want you to do all the big, go to Washington, do all that kind of stuff like that. But you can start on infrastructure, and you start by looking and planning and working in your own backyard. And that is the part of public service and community building. And everybody can make a difference. Okay. And so that's part of the values part. You'll see a plus that comes along with our organization. Many times, the only reason you don't see it all the time is because when we incorporated, you couldn't put a special symbol. That plus is about values. And for us, those values are around equity centering, that there should be shared prosperity, that everybody matters, and and starting with personal responsibility. Okay. So anyway, so let's keep on going. So these and so at the end of the day, the big thing is like it is important, but always remember we are not it's not about the infrastructure sector itself. It's about what that sector does to really shape the lives of people, communities, and outcomes. It's the results. And in these careers, when you take this gauntlet up, that is the work that you take up. And it don't get better than that. Okay. So we're not the it. So and there's plenty to do. You gotta, no matter, I call it the big five. Who's doing the visioning? Where does the money come from? And we like to do projects where we say, let's, follow the money and follow the decision making. Okay. Every time it is always very helpful. And believe me, or every community got bosses. There is always, but if you kind of think to yourself, can I follow the money? How does the funding stream come through for these particular projects or for this organization? Or who does the appointments for this organization? The person who came to your church and asked you for their vote, and you're concerned about gentrification in your community and whether or not people will be able to stay. Guess what? If they're a mayor or something like that, they probably are making appointments to planning commissions and zoning commissions and things like that. And so those are the kinds of thinking that you want to wind up, and you can be strategic. And that strategic could be at 10 and 12 years old, 15 years old, 18 years old, and 20. And if you don't like the decisions that are being made, then run. Position yourself to be the person who is making those decisions. And that is possible. And so so don't be a victim. Don't think of being a victim. Think of somebody who can rise above it. So visioning, funding, you want to understand the governance of things. So as we go through these programs and different speakers come in and organizations and all of that, the management and administration, and then think about the things too. Well, it's public accountability. It's like, well, I didn't know these things, and it wasn't that easy for me to find them out. Talking to yourself and say, so what does that say to you? When you have the opportunity to be in meetings or be able to say, well, how do we find that information? Can we look for, about reporting to the public and all that? The point of it is that I don't forget who said it, but you could be the change that you want to see. Okay. And so you can be the change. So if you think that there's not enough transparency, it's not readily available, you can't, whatever, don't be a victim. Think about the things that you can do and try to make sure that you get the tools in your life, the tools. And there are tools who's like this, and they're personal, they're mentoring tools. There are, people that, touch your life, okay, give you insights and stuff like that that it's not that you never would have had them, but let me put it this way. Everybody cannot be in your front row. You need to pick your front row carefully. And that goes friends and family, okay? Everybody can't be in your front row, but there are front row people who will be able to touch your life and then you give it back. That will make a tremendous difference in your life. And that does not have to do with all the time wealth and all that kind of stuff like that. No, but who will help you. They'll be navigators, help you with navigating. Okay. And so anyway, and so this whole thing in terms of public accountability, I'm gonna leave another one with you, is that and also don't get confused. We have a lot of progress. A lot of progress has been made. We got a lot to do too. But there is a very big difference between personal accomplishment and collective success. We have a lot of examples of personal accomplishment, but where we suffer is in being able to show collective success. And it is only as a collective that moves forward that everybody shares in the wealth and the prosperity of this really great country. Okay. And that is the work that we That's the we work that we need to do. So all of these sectors very much about public service as well. Okay. Now, so critical conversations when you considerations when you think about the transportation sector, and we'll talk about sustainable mobility and clean, is that what is that we link to outcomes. That's the part about we're not the it. It's about jobs and economic competitiveness. It's about the decisions that get made in transportation and in mobility and in water and all these access to opportunity. It's about environmental sustainability, public health, energy independence, and then the kinds of things, and you look at it and you say to yourself, well, some questions here. Who's using it and who are the users, who are the non-users, who pays for it? And equity. And I always laugh with people and I say, I have some examples of this, but we throw these words around equity, equality, and all that. If there's one thing I learned a long time ago, is equity is not sameness, because everybody doesn't start from the same place. And so you can have equality, but that doesn't mean that you have equity. And so having equity means that you recognize the fact, good and bad, positive and whatever, that everybody is simply not starting from the same place. Now, can I make sure everybody has the same outcome? No, I can't make sure everybody has the same outcome. But what I can try to do is make sure that everybody at least has the same opportunity to be able to achieve those same outcomes. Now, a lot of it you got to do yourself. Okay. But that's what we talk about when we talk about leveling the playing field. Okay. So moving on. So keep remember, what do these positions do? And then in Aya, you always hear us talk about it's a transformative justice lens. That's what it is. And we talk a lot about but we have a lot of things that kind of come out of the civil rights movement, the modern civil rights movement. A part of that is that that's just kind of who we are. But then on top of that, I never fail to recognize and remember Dr. Juanita Jones Abernathy. She was that I had just 7 or 8 years with her, but just a tremendous public servant and just all of that, and a mentor as well for somebody who was in their late 50s at the time. And this was one of the terms that Dr. King always used, was my beloved community, although he did not create it. And it is kind of a cornerstone, but it's really around transformative justice. And that, yes, we can make a difference. And we not only can make a difference, we should make a difference. Okay. So let's just keep going on. Okay. So what's happening in this transportation sector? There's a lot going on. There's a lot of change, and just in society, a lot of rapid transformation. I mean, every time there are not, and I'm going to show you about what that means. So it's a lot of change, a lot of rapid transformation. It's not going to be stopping. And there's also uncertainty. Okay. But what in that uncertainty, what that all that does is it presents us all with an opportunity. And this is one of the things that we say at everybody was talking about reimagining normal. And this is why being with young people like you helps me. It helps me to stay grounded. So we just reimagining normal, reimagining normal. And so then when it came up about the just, like what normal are we running back to? And so I was nicely told that I needed to get with I needed to modernize. Okay. Because what our young people, I'm not joking, they told me, they said, look, Doc, we need to not only reimagine normal, we need to rewrite it. I said, well, hello. Okay. And so, no joke aside, is that it's about reimagining, but it's also rewriting. And this is a part of what you'll hear when we come into all the challenges and the repositioning, the bus operator and everything. We need to rewrite the script, not just reimagine it, rewrite it. Okay. So here's what's happening when we talk about transportation or any of these infrastructure sectors, which is tremendous for you and me. There are no silos. That linkages are everywhere. Transportation doesn't do transportation's business by itself. Water doesn't do water by itself. Communications doesn't do communications by themselves. And Lord have mercy, when you wind up and people don't experience poverty and deprivation by itself. If I got a housing problem, I probably got a transportation problem, and I probably got a water problem, and I got a public health problem. Okay. And so if there, and this is quite different in looking at this sector and these careers generally that I absolutely did not bring to the table 45 years ago. And it is still very difficult for us because we're very siloed. I always laugh and tell people my own sector is siloed. Okay. I go into rooms and I say, which transportation am I talking to now? Am I talking to maritime, aviation, trucking, public transportation, heavy roads, or whatever? Which one? Okay. It's gotten a lot better. Okay. But which one? And so the point being that when you come into the transportation sector, because I always laugh and say I must admit that I have a bias. Because I always laugh and say the other sectors, they can't do me because they don't have the equipment. They can't actually move goods and they can't move people, you know what I'm saying? But notwithstanding, I joke a bit. But so here's put it in your my grandmother used to say, put a pin in it. So here's your sweet spots. Okay. Yes, transportation, but in transportation, you can do almost everything and you connect with everything. So when you're thinking about, and tell you the truth, almost every time I've thought to myself through these 45 years that we really didn't do that, use that, or need that in transportation, I have been disabused of the notion. Okay. Because it really is an area that really links up with almost everything. And quite candidly, as you are that we're beginning to talk a lot more even nationally. In fact, 10 years ago, think about it. People were not really talking about infrastructure. When these reauthorizations and stuff come up, everybody was really focused on their area. We're going for the transportation reauthorization. We're going for the water, blah, 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 blah. We're going for the energy, whatever. And this notion that these things, okay, were not just themselves, but they really made up infrastructure, okay. You won't see bills come out on infrastructure acts or yeah, it's happening. It's happening. The silos are breaking down. The silos are breaking down because of the fact that people are understanding that the connections are not kinda when you want them, they're there. Okay. I give you an example. Here's one. When Maria happened in Puerto Rico, aside from being real stupid because I'd never been to Puerto Rico before, but I was trying to we were talking, we do a lot of mutual aid in the transportation sector. And at the time, it just seemed to me that I hadn't heard very much about Puerto Rico, which I knew was more difficult because it was more insular. And so anyway, I called the people who run the train, who had been operating the Tren Urbano down there for years. And I called them and I said, how could we help? Because there was no way that we were just going to try to start something, it was like, what would help? And so I said, well, tell me what's going on. And this is exactly what they said. They told me, they said, Bea, look, technically speaking, we could have brought train service back up in 10 days. Now, we could not have replaced bridges and all that, but we could have brought train service back up in 10 days. But it really didn't matter because there was no communications and no energy. And if you look at the reports and stuff that started coming out on this stuff, okay, about public health and all of that, is that we are not an island. That's exactly what was happening. And so, particularly on the climatic side of things, and if you look at FEMA, go to your emergency management website. We'll probably do it a time or two. In fact, the first career awareness search session we had was February 21st, because the U.S. climate report came out that has to come out every 4 years. And part of that large report goes through all of the climatic changes that are taking place in the United States and projected to take place. The point of that is that the number, the frequency, and the intensity of climatic impacts on this country is no normal that we have ever experienced. And so they'll do the heat maps and they show you exactly what I'm saying. Number, frequency, duration. So what has happened is most of our game plans over the last 20 years or 30 have been around events that pretty much, you could figure that within, 3 months, the big impact was over, and you were pretty much could get yourself kind of in a recovery, a recovery mode, okay, or stabilization mode within 6. That doesn't work anymore. That's not the script. Katrina was one of the ones that really brought that home front and center. And so, because of the impacts, you're not just going in to deal with transportation. You got to deal with water. You got to deal with public health. You got to deal with the food impacts. You got to deal with all these things are rippling. And so, as you are preparing the tools for yourself in your toolkit, it is also opening the what you can do, what you can be engaged in, and how they all come together. And I will tell you the sweet spot is those people who literally think interdependency and they think cross-sectoral. The people who not only know their own sector, but know and make as a part of your professional and personal network. You want to know the people in your utilities. You want to know the people that are in your housing. You want to know your counterparts that are in public health. You want to know da 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 da. Okay, because that is how you make and keep and grow and strengthen community. And at the end of the day, so you don't have bounds like we used to think in terms of how these careers go. Okay, you'll have areas you're better in or more specialized in, but don't think of the boundaries. The other thing that's happening is public behavior and expectations. It's tremendously changing. And so there's a lot, you're hearing what I'm saying, that's happening to our sectors and how we do things and everything that are not even being, they're not in the control of the sectors, but public behavior and expectation change. Who ever thought we'd have been doing all this Amazon and telemedicine and all this kind of stuff like that, growing inequality and unrest? Well, I mean, it is in spades, okay? And this is the part where we are gonna have to figure out how we work. And I will tell you, that is some of the hardest stuff to do. But we are not, we're gonna have to figure this out together. Okay. And I always laugh and tell people, no, when people say, "Well, I'm just gonna leave." They say, well, if you want to leave, you go and leave. I'm not leaving. I'm gonna stay right here because I'm fighting. Okay. And so yes, the things that we have that we need to definitely put number one priority on, but I'm not rolling over. And nor do you. If you care about something and know that you can make a difference and you can make a difference, and there is plenty, not just in our country, but inequality and unrest around inequality. You cannot be sustainable or resilient in the long term if there's only two people at the top of the hill and you can't even hope for everybody else. Used to be you could hope that you could get up the hill and you could see you were getting up the hill. And it's no joke. That has not been the case for many years, and that is not just in the United States. This chasm between who has and who doesn't is just not sustainable. It's not right, but it's not a sustainable model for anyone. And so unprecedented climate change, we talked about that a little bit, that modern times, everybody having to write new scripts on this stuff. Okay, because like I'm telling you, what used to happen, and we could go and say, oh, the average is whatever, whatever, is blown out the window. Okay. And then workforce and workplace changes. And these really accelerated during the pandemic. So the who is changing, the where people are working is changing, the what is changing about work, and the how. I mean, AI, artificial intelligence, autonomous vehicles, robotics, you just name it. Okay, and I'm saying, and this is changing. And then, of course, and I have to say this, in terms of your career, and one of these areas that's cross everything, I used to tell people, you think safety, okay? But safety is one of these careers that it crosses through every. Cybersecurity is another. There is not one IT, OT system in any of these critical infrastructure sectors where we're not, you don't even have to wonder whether you're on the side, whether you're being hacked, because be assured, you probably are. It's just a matter of whether or not any suspicious anybody chooses to mess with you on that particular moment. Okay, you know what I'm saying? But cybersecurity is absolutely a career choice. And this is another one of those areas. You do not have to be a NASA scientist in order to wind up being an exceptional person in cybersecurity. There are certification programs and everything. Part of the challenge that we have in our country, and I want everybody to get every degree they can, is that we have made the bachelor's degree the default. And you can certainly learn as you earn. Keep going, Isaiah. Learn as you earn, and wind up being able to K to grade. Take me to K to grade. We have to think more and do more about people. And this is the way I want you to think about your career. Continuous learning. There's not an inoculation for life. We're gonna all be learning as long as we are on, as long as we're blessed to be able to be here. We're going and being very active. We're going to be learning the entire time. And so just think of that. You're going to be constantly, there's deployment of new technology is going to be happening. There are going to be things that don't require the 4-year degree, but you got to go periodically to get boost ups. Okay. So you're going to need recertifications, upskilling, reskilling. There's a point at which, yes, it does make a difference if you have the degree or not. And it makes a really core competency difference, not just an automatic default. I'll be the first one to tell you, you don't have to have it. But yes, if you choose to wind up becoming the director level, the C-suite and all that, yes, you want to wind up being able to have the college degree plus. Now, you don't have to, but I can honestly say that there's a valid reason there. Okay, and I'm saying it's not, but if I'm trying to do many of the positions to get started, do you have to have it? No, you do not. Okay. And so that's taking nothing. I'm not trying to compete against it, okay, at all. Okay. But that's the kind of thinking that, and so you can learn and earn. And at the same time, not only learn and earn, but one of the great things in our careers, and I'm gonna come back to public transportation, these infrastructure sectors, is one of the things, they're very highly unionized, and that is a good thing, okay? Because what happens is that in many of our, we have still have some reasonable benefits and some stability and a lot of tuition reimbursement programs, okay, that are like, oh my God, people that are my counterparts, some of them, they've got their master's degrees and doctorate degrees and PEs and stuff, actually didn't start with it, but by taking advantage of, not advantage, they've been working, but also being able to take advantage of the tuition reimbursement programs and things of that nature that are just kind of a part of the way that, because we are in many instances so kind of public girded, sector girded, that in some of these sectors, they're kind of part, they come along with what we call total compensation. Okay. And so, but look at all the different ways vocational training can get you there, military service, you can go straight to work. And there's no, believe me, let's get out of this stuff, what's blue collar and what's white collar. It's gray collar. Okay. And I'm saying, and I started out and I said, a professional is somebody who does their job and does it well. And that is the cleaner. Okay. And cleanliness is next to godliness in all these systems. Okay. So get all that old notion stuff out of your head. Okay. And just think about what is it that is absolutely required of the work that needs to be done. And that is everything. Okay. And you know what? I am so grateful for everybody who does their job and does it well and does it with pride. Okay. And so that's the kind of, and never let anybody take that, never let anybody take that away from you. But this whole thing, continued education, it's a career. Okay. All right. So let's go to our next thing. I gotta hurry up. So this is what, so when you make this pivot and people start talking about, I did a test with general managers and I asked them a question. I said, now we go to all these mobility meetings. We don't call it a lot of times transportation anymore. I said, I was talking to some young people and they told me, they said, Doc, we get it. Now tell me, where do we go get some of that mobility? Where do we go? I don't see a program in my college book or my community college book or my school that's talking about where do you go get a mobility career. And I did. I said, tell me, you got 30 seconds. Tell me what is a mobility career. Well, here, well, and we had to, so words, okay. But here's the difference. When you're focusing on sustainable mobility, all of that stuff what is that? It's about outcomes. It's about outcomes. And so when you're talking about outcomes, the the thinking around transportation in these sectors difference. It changes because I'm talking about results and outcomes. And in doing that, under the notion of mobility, I'm concerned about efficient, effective, affordable movement of people and goods. Okay. That's not because it's called transportation. Okay, I'm saying. And so when you do that, and we bring in that brings in an environmental lens, it brings in an equity lens, it brings out in a social and economic opportunity lens. And when you start doing that, then it broadens what one begins to think of as to what are the types of careers that work in that world. Okay. And so that's the whole thing. It's like, yeah, I could be in housing and land use. I could be in public health. I could be in I could be in all kinds of different areas that actually wind up interacting with this world. I was giving an example earlier. We were had a briefing that one of our sessions, the Port of Long Beach, and they were giving a talk to young people, and they were talking about their scuba divers. Okay, and so look like this is a some internals they talking about scuba divers. It's all about the flora, the fauna, the deadliest catch and what's happening out there. And when we have the affluents that are leaving out of our boats and ships and all that kind of stuff like they claim, but literally they weren't trying to say they had thousands of scuba divers or thousands of scientists and everything that we're looking at. But yes, they have them. Okay, I'm saying. And so that's the kind of thing that I always laugh. I said so many times people will say, "Oh, you all couldn't possibly do this." Like they'll be saying, "Well, my career that I want to go in is medicine." And I want to be. I said, do you know how much drug testing, MRO, medical review officers, safety? Do you know? I mean, there's some agencies that literally employ them themselves. On when I was at New York State Transit Authority, we had 100 some people that were in our medical department. Okay, let alone all of everything else that we contracted out. Okay, and so every time I've ever, psychologist, post traumatic stress syndrome. I mean, every time I've ever tried to think of myself or something, say, what don't we do? I've been I've had to shut up, okay, because I go back and I say, "Oh, yeah, we do that." "Oh, hydrologists, would we do anything like that?" "Oh, yeah, hydrologists, all the landscaping and different things that we do for our facilities and stuff like that." So I often say that transportation, has so much new technology. We got oh my God. So keep going. You got to get us. So these are just some of the examples: community health advisor, environmental protection, human rights, and who would think that, housing specialist, marine health, solar. So these are just just a tiff, just a pimple of the community of the types of careers that you can be in the transportation sector, mobility, okay? And these are the kinds of skill sets and these are the kinds of positions that you will find across all of these agencies. And just thinking about it, but if you didn't get a deeper awareness of it, you say, "Oh, I'm doing something. I'm not, that's not for me." Okay. So let's keep going. Okay. And so keep me on. I know I'm getting over time. And so I want you to, if there's nothing else, I want you to remember from this that it's much more complex, which is good, than just thinking and saying transportation, buses, boats, and da 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 da. It's more, okay? Because when you start looking at how society really works and how these things connect, it's a lot of interconnections. A lot of the stuff becomes multi-sectoral, okay? The people in when we talk about electrification, even though electrification is primarily the energy in the transportation sectors, people in the water sector tell me, they say, "Bam, we want to come to the meeting. We know you and energy are going to be the ones leading the role. But what do you think are the core competencies and skill sets as we are modernizing the water sector? The same things that you all need to do for the digitalization, all that kind of stuff, proficiency, same types of things that we need on our end. So why don't we think about doing it together?" Okay, and I'm saying interdisciplinary, you'll hear us talking more and more about stackable credentials. so that, hey, if we can start thinking and doing together at a regional scale and a local scale, do we really have to all have our separate thing, or are there areas? And there's some of this that has taken place, particularly in the construction trades and stuff. If we start thinking and working differently and operating differently, where you need all stakeholders, we need public, private sector, academia at the table, community-based philanthropy has a big, I didn't even know philanthropy was a career till I really started getting deeper into my own career. I didn't know that. I didn't know organized labor was a career. Okay, and I'm saying, as G said yesterday, when he started out as an operator, if you'd have asked him anything about he would be an international rep, like a VP for North America for workforce development, never even crossed his mind. Okay. And so, and I started, as what is a glorified intern on a fellowship. Okay. Just like when Isaiah's a fellowship. Okay. I've been teaching and I fell into this in 1976, really, on a fellowship. There was a Carnegie Houston Urban Fellows Program, and there wasn't even a Houston Metro. And that is how I fell into this career. Okay. And I'm going boom, 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 boom. So there is not, when I say to you, is the sky is the limit. It's true. And remember, good job. You'll be self-employed and a business owner and all of that. So don't think the entrepreneurial piece is out of this, okay? But you always have to know something foundationally about what you're going to do a good job in. You know, you go into a business and you don't know anything about the business. So once again, you can pivot, okay? The other thing, keep going. The next thing okay, I want to go here, end up here. The next thing that's very interesting about that is we used to think that when you came into the sectors in a way, like you came in as private sector, or you came in as public sector, or you came in as an academic, or you came, notice I said I was teaching. Tennessee State University, Government and Public Affairs. If you'd asked me, was I going to be doing this? I'd have told you never know. I would never had it as part of my mindscape. So the point I'm making to you is that you can move. You can move. And people are much more the last, I would say, like probably 10 years, maybe a little bit 15, but I would say 10 years. You see people, they're doing public sector, they do private sector, they might go and do something in philanthropy. They kind of, you're seeing a lot more of that movement. And that's the way that you want to think about your career. You could go and do something. You could be in the housing sector. You could come back and you could do this. You could do that. So think about yourself. So that's why this whole notion of tools and your toolkit and keeping your toolkit sharp. And your toolkit needs to not just be sharp on technical skills. And increasingly in this virtual stuff, it is, people call them the soft skills. It's some of the most important skills that you could ever have is your people skills, and they call them the soft skills. How do you motivate? How do you work with other people? That's another reason on the innovation challenge and stuff is so important, because that challenge is as much around how are you, these are 5 to 7, 4 to 7 folks that you don't know, that you've never known for the most part. And you've got to come together and you're going to have to learn how to work together. You're going to have to understand how everybody can't be on first. You got to make decisions. Who's going to be the presenter? Who's going to do this? How are we going to pull this thing together? Blah, 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 blah. You got to work through that. Okay. And those are learned experiences. Okay. And I'm saying, how do you present? Okay. How do you work on that? So these are all what happens when you get knitted up and you just don't seem to be able to reach a consensus. How do you work through that? Do you just say, I'm going to go in my room in my computer and I'm not going to say anything? Or how do you develop the skill set that helps you to be able to move things? I tell people all the time, it's a difference in being able to stop something and between knowing how to advance it. That's why we need people in every one of these areas. We need community advocates. We need people who are within the agencies. We need people who are outside, who are external stakeholders, because stopping something is not easy, but you can. But advancing it is different. Okay. And so that really does take this notion of, I'm going to have to be able to convince people that don't necessarily think like I do. Now, this is the best gift I think we could give you. And Isaiah is going to take you through very quickly. I started to put a whole bunch of stuff together about clean energy. And guess what? I went to the Department of Energy's websites. Okay, I can tell you that this is the fastest growing area. I can also tell you what Jack and them said. ITLC G and Pat told you yesterday is transportation is not going anywhere. It is one of the it also is one of the fastest growing areas. We're projecting that we'll be adding like another, oh my God, 400,000 half million positions up just until getting to 2030. This area of energy, clean energy, renewables is, really it's one of the absolute, it's like at the top of the chart in terms of uh, new continued opportunities, growth opportunities for employment. Okay. And so why don't you just take it through? There is unbelievable content on the
Mhm.
Department of Energy website. Okay. I mean, they go through all the different types of positions that are in the clean, and some of what you see and what I just was going through that are in clean energy. And a lot of times things are like what we say, hidden in plain sight. Same thing you'll find if you go to Department of Transportation and some of these others. And certainly the American Public Transportation Association is here, and Carita Decree is here. They have tremendous reservoir of technical resources and stuff where you don't have to recreate this stuff. So take it away. I just show some of the. So when we
Mhm.
talk about clean energy, here's your Department of Energy talking to you.
Right. So this is like Dr. Scott said, this is on the Department of Energy's website. This is like one of the cool, like I just found out about this yesterday. This is one of the coolest things I've ever seen. It is an advanced manufacturing career platform map. So it essentially can draw you what your career would essentially look like if you started in from an entry position in the energy sector and worked your way up. And as you'll see, I'm just gonna choose a random entry level career here. Let's do like maintenance technician, for example. Once you click on it, you can see the different opportunities, different kind of sectors you can transfer over to. So even just here, even at the entry level of a maintenance technician working in manufacturing, I immediately have the opportunity to switch over to an associate engineering position on the mid level in product development. So I'm just gonna go. Let's say I've already committed to being a manufacturing technician. I'm gonna upgrade over here to an advanced manufacturing technician. Now you can see I have even more options. Now I can consider going all the way over to packaging, and somehow it goes all the way over to distribution. So, I personally like I don't see how like that connection between like manufacturing to distribution is there, but on this website it gives an explanation of each job description, and it also explains how both these jobs interconnect. So let's say I go from advanced manufacturing technician to distribution supervisor. Now I have even more options. Now I can go from manufacturing to distribution to now packaging to in between. Or if I even want to commit to a senior level position in distribution, I have that option right there. And then like from there, it just never ends. It just never ends. So from right there at the senior level, I can go from packaging or to manufacturing. So, let's say we go all the way back to a production manager in manufacturing. And see, you can go to product development, then you can go all the way to research innovation. And, see, this map, it just like never stops. And then if you want to take a screenshot of it and save it so you can have for yourself a reference on what ideally you would like your map to look like, they have that. And then again, going back to what Dr. Scott said before, it's not just scientists and engineers that we need in the energy sector. See, we have the exploration wheel, which you can have either a liberal arts background or a communication arts and education background. So, if we click from there, it shows different kinds of options where you can start out. You can start as a public affairs trainee in the education sector. And from there, you can go into operations, and from just like that you can go into different positions like that. So this is just a quick website, and I've had this linked in the presentation, and I'll put this in the chat below. But Dr.
Mhm.
Scott can go into it. Just goes to show how versatile the career options are, regardless of what your background is or where you're coming in from.
Mhm, and it's I mean, and these are the kinds of things, and when we did the surveying with, youth last year, and we were looking at careers, the 3 things folks said, and it you notice they put the compensation down there too. 3 things at the top that folks came back with, they said, "Look, we wanna select careers where there's competitive pay and benefits, Okay. The second thing that people were very concerned about was having flexibility. But there was a good acknowledgement that particularly the frontline positions, a lot of times you have to be there, but they said, but we can work with you all on that because we think you do some really old antiquated stuff in your scheduling that could be changed. And you're right about that could make it more attractive. Okay. And the third one was that young people really wanted to understand what were their career advancement opportunities. How can I see how I can where I can go? Where's a like a map? Okay, and I'm saying, and different areas are doing it different ways. I have just been impressed by so if somebody would ask the question, well, how do I get in clean energy? And am I okay to be in clean energy? Like, I'm not a engineer, I'm not a this, I'm not a that. And I just feel that as that they've done a really good job of doing that. In addition to that, and this is one of the sessions that Chris is going to be leading later, is to also they have so many opportunities. They've got grant programs that are there. We're going to be doing this for like DOT. Of course, we'll be starting out with DOT and APTA and Latinos and Compto and all that. We're going to be, like what's available, like Karita, Mr. Cree was saying that, okay, it's APTA time, APTA Foundation, American Public Transportation Foundation. And I've been honored to sit on that board and be part of the scholarship committee for many times through the decades. Okay. These are wonderful opportunities and scholarship opportunities. And they're not, I'm being honest, they're not chump change. Okay. And they're there, okay, and we want you to know they're there, and we want you to apply for them, okay. So, like Conference of Minority Transportation Officials, United States Department of Transportation, just like this exists on the clean energy side, and you'd be surprised. Like already, it's like I didn't even know they had those things. They got R&D, they got design, they got production, they got assembly, and distribution. Oh, they even had a warehouse thing, packaging, shipping, receiving clerk, material handler. There, that the when you just a little education, just a little
Yeah,
information.
it's just really cool to see how,
Yeah,
like, just looking at it in perspective, you can start out as an entry level warehouse associate, and then you have up to more than 15 different career pathways, and then you can intersect between each other. Like, while you were talking, I was clicking through, trying to make this as like as confusing as possible, but essentially, you can go from distribution to product development to manufacturing, back to distribution, back to product development, and then somehow into packaging, and then somehow you end up into research and innovation, and then you move up through there. And then, yeah, I could just go on forever. This is like such a cool website where the
yeah.
possibilities really do feel endless, and like sometimes it feels like I'm playing a game, just like pathwaying what options do I have in my career.
Yeah. So I'm going to end it. Oh Lord, I've done it again. Okay. I'm going to end my, but the thing that goes along with this is, which is why we're always so eternally grateful to all of the sponsors and the local hosts and all that, is that what we say that we try to do is to provide you with the touch, the navigational, the mentors, the buddies, call them what you will. Okay, of folks who are in the industry who care, okay, and really want to help you to navigate that. But I'm saying there is a lot that is just absolutely available, and we just want to make sure we bring it to you. It's no sense. I was laughing. I told him, I said, it's no sense in me sitting up here just basically hot shotting, whatever. Let the Department of Energy speak for itself, and then also this whole thing in plain sight. A lot of times things are out there. And I used to always tell people, you don't need to give me anything but one, the key, the key. And then I can open the door myself. Okay. Now we know sometimes we got to go a little bit more than that, and we got to do a little deeper. Okay. Um, After Now has a student memberships, $25 for college students. Every single kid, every single young person that you all bring to the table, part of that fee you pay, we are going to pay those memberships. I sometimes ask people, will they donate them? But those are the kinds of things, because that's the networking. Okay, that's the networking that takes place, okay? That, it don't get better than that, and then they take that and they stay in contact. The what you all Ralph, I have to thank you all for what you all are doing. It's like it's many everybody on the phone. The time that you're putting in with these youth, and believe me, when they gave us their, reactions from the challenge and all of that, what they recognized was that they were getting the opportunity to interact with, in many instances, the most senior people in these organizations. Because as a part of doing their challenge, they would ask questions and then they need to have somebody come in and brief them. And then, and they understood the fact that they were really getting access to folks, and in many instances, not because people trying to be funny, they just wouldn't have. Okay. And all of that is what makes a difference. Okay. And so we got a couple of things or takeaways on our end team. APTA's just come out, and these are good ones. Okay. I mean, I'm not trying to say other ones aren't, but we at the APTA Foundation pieces have come out in terms of their foundation for the scholarships piece. And I think Rita said that was like June 6th or whatever. So we need to make sure everybody gets the information, gets it to their youth. And then I want to pull the list for the youth for the last year and some of the alums and make sure that we do the distribution of the information that it's available. Okay. And they really, really should apply for it because they are tremendous opportunities. They really are. So anybody have any questions? We're talking to our future, and as everyone knows, all the content that come into these career awareness sessions are fair game for our trivia contest. And our award for trivia this year will be $1,000 to the winner of the trivia contest. We don't like to use money as a motivator all the time, but because we don't actually ourselves give a stipend, we do try to make sure that the awards that we can give will be meaningful and will be helpful. And we once again can do that because of you all. So anybody got any questions or anything that they would like to share with our young people that will be going through these things like, oh God, I'm looking at another one. I think they must binge on them sometimes. Because I was talking to the young man from AC Transit who won last year. And it was like, it really, and TTC came in second place. And he was laughing. He said that part of what he did do, he said, I'll admit I did do a little bit of binging. He said, I'm just looking at him through it. He said, but I did a little binging, but that's how that, but it was a lot of fun too. I think it was kaput. We did Kahoot. Which one? How you call it,
Yeah,
Isaiah? You
Kahoot.
and
Yeah, I
me.
was Kahoot for sure.
Yeah, Isaiah was the one that said it should be done where he said, use the Kahoot. So once again, I'm not gonna hold everybody, but I hope that this was interesting. Okay. And as always, these are the careers that you get to do community building. Just think about it. You can change your life, your household's life, your community's life, and society. And you can make a difference. I see you. Bye bye.